Now for the water update, we got some good news early this morning. KDHE has rescinded the water boil advisory for the city of Wichita. The advisory remains in place for the cities of Rose Hill, Valley Center, Derby, Keachai, and Sedgwick County Rural Water District number 2 and number 3. So here to tell us more is Don Henry from our Public Works Utilities Department. It's Don.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Don Henry, Deputy Director of Public Works and Utilities. As you're all aware, KDHE directed the city to issue a boil water advisory out of an abundance of caution on Tuesday afternoon. Just to go back over kind of the highlights of what happened, this was a result of a slight increase in measured turbidity during a routine maintenance procedure on one of the treatment filters. It was a slight amount, short-lived in duration, but out of abundance of caution and due to a regulatory limit, the boil advisory is put in effect. City staff worked closely with KDHE around the clock on the recovery portion of it, which included an aggressive flushing of our water mains on the perimeter around the water treatment plant. It also included pulling 180 water samples and testing them for bacteria. We met with KDHE at 12:30 this morning to go over the results, and due to the favorable results of the samples indicated that the city's water remained safe the whole time through the duration of the incident, and the boil advisory was lifted for City of Wichita customers about 1 o'clock this morning. Keep in mind that the communities that the mayor mentioned, they do remain under the boil advisory, so they should continue to follow KDHE's directions for that. The City of Wichita staff is working closely with each of our wholesale customers to ensure they have the support that they need to get their samples done timely, help coordinate with KDHE if we need to on the results. We're utilizing our laboratory to run the results. We're going to do what we can to help them get out from under the advisory as quickly as possible. Now that we're on the other side of this, we've had a chance to take a look at what we learned through this process. And the minute it happened, of course, we start to look at what led up to this and what happened. And so as part of our continuous improvement process, incidents like this and even incidents that don't rise to this level, we always do a hot wash, we call it, or a review of the conditions and what happened. And so measures have been put in place to make sure that we've got the right procedures and oversight in place when we carry out this particular operation. And we're also working with a consulting water process engineer to make sure that we have all of the details covered. So we've got a high level of confidence that we'll be able to continue this particular type of operation and maintenance on a filter without any future incidents.
What should residents do to ensure that their water coming into their house is now flushed out, ready to go, clean? Any tips or advice that you should?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for asking that. The water is completely safe, so people can use their water as normal. They don't need to take any additional actions. The sampling did indicate that the water has remained safe throughout, so there's no difference in what's in their pipe. Their private pipes is what's in our mains, so we're good to go.
Obviously, some concerns from people just in the fact that we've had 2 incidents happen in less than a year's time. What's to prevent this from happening again in, say, 1 month, 2 months, a couple months down the line? What steps are being taken?
Right. So you know, the 2 incidents that resulted in these 2 different boil orders were unrelated. So they were 2 different kinds of things. One was a broken pipe. One was during a maintenance procedure on a filter. So one in the treatment plant, one out in the distribution system. So we've learned from those incidents to make sure that those don't happen again. We've got highly qualified staff. We have to have one Class 4 licensed operator on duty at all times. Instead of 1 of those, we have 5 of those, and we have 2 of those on duty at all time. Make sure that we've got the right training in place, that they've got the support they need and the resources, and just continue to be diligent and get better at what we do.
Is there anything that could have been done to prevent this from happening? Is it an equipment problem?
It was not an equipment failure. What we were doing is we were draining one of the filters down. We have 14 filters. We were taking one of them down to pull a sample of the media. You actually dig up part of the media. There's some anthracite carbon-based product and some sand. From time to time, it's on occasion what we'll do is we'll look at that to make sure our filters are in good condition, to see if variability in our raw water quality is affecting or having a negative impact on our filters. And so occasionally we will drain a filter down and take a look at that. As to how this happened, it's relative to the filter loading and the speed at which it was drained. And so working with this process engineer to understand the relationship between the speed of the drain and the loading on this filter is the key to making sure that this doesn't happen again.
Oh, please. And we'll have time afterwards for more questions to jump into this. I do, while we're on this topic, want to thank staff who've really been working around the clock to make sure that we get everything where it needs to be as far as water. Very much encouraging to know that the tests not only came back, but they showed that our water, the integrity of our water, remained throughout this crisis. However, as folks have mentioned, the 24 hours is part of the testing process to ensure that the integrity of our water was good enough to drink. We're glad that it passed that, but also that timeline, during that timeline, these tests show that our water was still drinkable during that time. So very glad about staff not only being on top of this, but also, frankly, we learned yesterday that this wasn't an easy thing to spot. We had trained staff who not only were able to spot this issue, but also self-reported it. And we want to continue to foster that type of environment here at the city that is both accountable and transparent. So we understand this was an incredible inconvenience. It's terrible anytime we have to do this, but we do want to just applaud staff who did what was right over what was easy. I think it would have been pretty easy for someone to not notice something like this, and we want to make sure that we put the safety of our citizens and our staff know we put the safety of our citizens above everything else, because even if one person got sick, that's one person too many. So thank you for the staff for working around the clock to make sure that we are back online and everything is going well.